That time of the year between Christmas and New Year's is dominated by international hockey with the World Junior Championship and some National Hockey League stuff tossed in. But this is going to be all about the Olympic rosters, and we're going to dig into it today with Scott Burnside on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. I anticipate some debate here between the Canadian and U.S. rosters.
Yeah, so do I. By the way, I know that everybody's excited about the outdoor game being in Florida on Friday, and rightly so. It's going to be fascinating, but talk about overshadowed. There's not going to be much hype about the outdoor game when you consider what we're going to talk about for the next 4 or 5 days when it comes to Olympic teams, particularly Canada, the United States, right?
First of the roster is going to be announced on New Year's Eve.
Right.
What a way to launch our way into the new year with the Olympic Winter Games in Milan and Cortina. Biggest hot button subject, is it Canadian goaltending between the North American clubs? Is it Team USA, whether or not they tweak their forward unit?
I think it's the Canadian forwards. I really do. I do, because
the Celebrini factor or Bedard.
Celebrini, but Bedard, Wyatt Johnston, Tom Wilson. I mean, there's even throw Nick Suzuki into there. I do think that that's where most of the conversation will occur or has occurred. The only reason I don't say it is about goaltending is I think that Canada is sold on Jordan Binnington, and it's going to be Jordan Binnington's until it can't be Jordan Binnington. And that simplifies it for me. But the forwards, and I really feel badly for Travis Konechny, because he appears to be the odd man out on everybody's list if there are lists.
I have a response to your goaltending statement. That's coming up. Scott Burnside on the other side. You can follow him on Overtime Scott B as we continue on 100% Hockey, available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. It's 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. Yes.
By the way, full episodes now on YouTube.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here. Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
The topic of the week in the National Hockey League or the hockey world relates to something that isn't taking place on the ice, and that is the roster announcements for the Olympic Winter Games and the hockey tournament for the men. Here's Scott Burnside, who joins us. You've got your claws deep into this thing.
Was that a question? Or you
yeah. You got
No, I'm so pumped for it, and I'm fortunate. I've done 3 Olympics. I've done the last 3 Olympic Games involving NHL players, and a couple of World Cups mixed in there, and of course last winter's 4 Nations face-off, and I'm filled with tremendous anticipation, and I have been all the way along through the steps of this. And Daren, you mentioned the imminent announcement of the rosters for the 12 teams that'll take part in the men's tournament in February in Milan. Man, there's so much excitement about it, and there's a lot of drama, and there's been some injuries for a bunch of nations, and I think the focus will rightfully so be on Canada and the United States, given the depth that both nations possess. Both teams could enter 2 teams, at least, that I think would have a chance to vie for a gold medal. And that means there are going to be 5 or 6 or 10 players from both nations who aren't named to this team, their respective teams, in the next couple of days. And there will be a lot of second guessing, and there will be a lot of rumination, which is great for people like us who make a living dissecting the game and talking about it. And there was a lot of pressure on U.S. GM Bill Guerin. What about Canada's GM oh my God.
Doug Armstrong.
Doug Armstrong. Sorry, Army.
I tell you what, you're from Windsor. How can you forget the Canadian guy? Come on.
Yeah, I know, but and Doug Armstrong and his management team with Team Canada, I remember talking to Doug Armstrong. Now that I can remember his name, when he was first named to the GM role with a Team Canada entry in one of these kinds of events, and he said, the good thing about it, or the bad thing about it, is you only get to screw up once, right? Like, you don't get a do-over if you're performing this role for a Canadian best-on-best team. And he's right, and he's still doing it. And it is going to be fascinating to see how both these teams build their rosters and how the other teams, how can they stack up? Because it's hard to imagine that, I don't care which order you have them in, is there any other way to rank the Olympic field in the men's tournament other than Canada-US or US-Canada? And that's with all due respect to a very good Swedish team. But to me, you always have to have them third. Am I wrong? Or?
Well, we thought that in 2006, and the Swedes won the gold. And then
big rink,
understand. Yeah. But, and then we always underestimate the Finns. We always underestimate the Finns. It doesn't matter how good they are. We don't give them enough credit until they're in the gold medal game.
Yeah.
and actually we see that more. We've seen that more at World Juniors.
Yeah.
And we've seen that more at World Championships, but I just don't know how you can. I know how you can discount both the Swedes and the Finns, but I'll tell you what, that's at your own peril. That really is at your own peril.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, is this not the great part of this? I know the owners hate this event, and I understand why they do, but. And it was less so in Sochi because Canada was so good, although the Americans were the best team coming out of the group play in 2014 in Sochi, and then lost to Canada in a game that was much closer on the scoreboard than on the ice, and then lost the bronze medal game to the Finns, to your point, John. But there are teams out there, when you get down to one game, think about, when you go back to 2002 and you. Oh,
listen, when we think about Canada winning the gold medal against the United States in Salt Lake City, how close was it that it wasn't Canada in the gold medal game because of the Belarusian defeat of the Swedes? On a goal that should not even have been close to being a goal because Tommy Salo tried to be Willie Mays.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, if you're listening to this or watching this and you don't know, go look it up right away. But it's a great point to remember because, and I go back to Vancouver, and even though it didn't end up with Canada, U.S. in the gold medal game, people forget that probably the U.S. were at the start of that tournament. You probably would have had them fourth or fifth, no better than third, I don't think, in terms of. Team, who do you like to win this tournament? Swedes were excellent fit, and it turned out to be Canada US, and it turned out to be an all-time classic, of course. But I remember that tournament because every single game was closely contested, and it didn't matter whether it was Norway and powerful Czechia team, and it didn't matter. Games were close. You go back to how close Slovakia comes against Canada in the semifinal game. Mm-hmm. Goal roll, puck rolls past Roberto Luongo in the dying minutes in a 1-goal game. They're all close. I expect this tournament to be very similar, and I think that's in part because all these teams have a brand new generation of players. Whether they're playing in the NHL right now or not, or playing in their respective elite leagues or whatever it is, the vast majority of the players who are going to play in Milan have never had this opportunity before. I think the emotion's going to be through the roof. I think the competition is going to be at an all-time high. And I think there will be, you talk about sleeping on the Finns, and I'm very curious about a team from Switzerland has all kinds of NHL talent. They have international success. If my memory serves correct, they lost in the gold medal game the last 2 years at the World Championships. Kevin Fiala is like a national hero in Switzerland. given his play internationally in the last couple of years. And I think the Swiss are a team that are going to, there are teams that are going to give the big boys lots of trouble. And I think the Swiss could be one of them.
Team USA is trying to win Olympic gold for the first time in forever. 1980, the Miracle on Ice, which is forever ago. If they do win, what do you think is their staple? What do we hang our hat on as to this is the reason why Team USA was able to climb to the top of the podium?
Yeah, I'm really Team USA is going to be so fascinating when we see or hear the release of the roster, because I go back to 2016, the World Cup of Hockey. It was kind of a weird tournament, couple made up teams, whatever. The Americans finished dead last in that tournament. And with all due respect to GM Dean Lombardi and his group, their focus going into the building of that team was to build a team to beat Canada. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that you can argue against that, given Canada's depth and talent. And, look at that roster. Look what happened at Four Nations Face-Off. But I just think you have to be a little bit careful. You got a 12-team tournament. You can't just build for one team. And I'm not suggesting Bill Guerin's doing that, but I do know Bill Guerin. I had a chance to chat with him recently. He really loved his team at Four Nations, even though they lost in overtime against Canada. Terrific event. And I was a bit surprised by the build of that team. Guys like Brock Nelson and Chris Kreider, Vincent Trocheck. I thought, okay, you can take one or two of those guys, but to have all three of them, and the proof was there. They were one shot away, one amazing save by Jordan Binnington away from winning it all. I don't know if all three of those guys make this Olympic team, but I know Bill Guerin, and you guys know him too, right? He manages in some ways the way he played. He was a man unafraid of anything. He's never been afraid to make the big deal. He's not afraid to step into the breach. And we saw that with the Minnesota Wild acquiring Quinn Hughes a few weeks ago. So I think this team, I am going to answer your question, Daren. I think this team is going to be, listen, it's chock full of talent, no question. But this is a team, even though you don't fight in the Olympics, this is a team that would be very happy playing all of this in an alley. And I think that's the identity they're going for. And I think that's how they feel they can beat Canada, certainly, how you can beat a very good Swedish team. And any other challenger that comes along, I think they're going to play some bully boy hockey. Small rink, even smaller than many expected, including the folks at the NHL and NHLPA. And I think that will play into how the final roster looks. And I think that's going to be their hallmark there. And I think, the skill is it's a given, and it's a given for all the best teams there. But identity, how you're going to play, what's the scheme, what's the system? My guess is they're going to play hard, in-your-face hockey, not unlike we, see the Florida Panthers play, or, teams like that who've had success.
Well, let's remember. By the way, the four guys you mentioned are going to be impactful in the announcement whenever the Americans announce their team, because I think the first three guys aren't going to be on the team, and we know that Quinn Hughes, who was supposed to be on Four Nations, is going to play.
Yeah,
and that alone.
So who are you leaving out, John? Who are you leaving off?
Kreider.
Okay.
Trocheck. Who is your
Nelson?
Brock Nelson? You don't think
Brock
any
Nelson
of them be on that team?
Yeah, I think Nelson's on the team.
I think Trocheck's on the team.
I want to be faster. I think
that's where you go. Clayton Keller, Cole Caulfield.
I might. I might.
I don't know.
Anyway, but my real point was the dynamic changes when Quinn Hughes is in your lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. No. That.
And Quinn Hughes was not in your lineup, and that might even change your philosophy of being in a street fight.
Well, it's also interesting.
I don't want Quinn Hughes in a street fight.
He's going to have Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber, this is Team USA. They're D partners right now with the Minnesota Wild, just like Taves and Makar with Colorado Avalanche. So some unique chemistry with the addition of Quinn Hughes being able to participate with Team USA.
Yeah. Well, and it does, John, there's no question that changes it. But listen, the skill is, again, you don't want Quinn Hughes, face washing with, Connor McDavid or whatever it is going to be. But I do think.
Well, that would be something watching those two guys go at it.
I once watched the playoff series, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and Kimmo Timonen and Chris Letang were fighting, and at the same time, Sidney Crosby and Claude Lemieux. Wasn't really much of a fight, but that was pretty good. I would line up to see a little Makar, McDavid tussle. I don't know, but I do. And I'm while we're on the topic of that American blue line, and it's going to be fascinating to see because injuries are going to play, such a critical role as we get through the roster announcement, and then if there are injury replacements leading up to early February. But as much as Quinn Hughes changes the dynamic for Team USA, and he changes in some ways the balance of power in that tournament, I think the potential absence of Jacob Slavin for Team USA, who's out week to week, what a tough few days for the Carolina Hurricanes and for Team Canada and Team USA, as the Hurricanes lost Seth Jarvis and Jacob Slavin in the same game against the Florida Panthers. Both, I will say right now, pretty questionable plays, unfortunately. And if you don't have Jacob Slavin, who I think was the best defender of all players at the Four Nations face-off, that's a real problem for Team USA. Because Jacob Slavin, people don't get how good he is, but he is a master. And that's going to be a real problem for Bill Guerin and Team USA if he can't play. Because as Quinn Hughes' absence changed things at Four Nations, Jacob Slavin, I would argue, would be a similar kind of impactful loss.
If Kreider is the one guy
do you name
out,
Slavin and take the chance?
Yes,
I guess do you name Slavin and then take the chance?
I would. Yeah.
Okay, because if he's not ready to go that second week of February, you can put a replacement in there.
Yeah.
If Kreider is the guy that we have out, is Jason Robertson the no-brainer to go in? And where does that leave people like Cutter Gauthier and Cole Caulfield, Clayton Keller, Tage Thompson?
It's a great question. To me, I think you have him. I think you have Jason Robertson. If he's not the top U.S.-born player in the scoring race right now, I think he and Kyle Connor at the 1-2 at the top of the list. And I think you have him. I don't know that it's a given, though. I just think, again, going back to this identity. I mean, and I'm not throwing shade at Jason Robertson, but sometimes the playoff performances have been wanting. And that's the other thing, Daren. You asked earlier about the identity of this American team, and if they win, what will that identity have been? I think it's really important for Bill Guerin and that group to have players who are battle tested, who have, and I think Canada is going to be in the same boat. And we will talk about that at some point. What do you do with Sam Bennett? And I think Reinhardt's an obvious one, but Sam Bennett, not a great start for anybody.
But on the American side, Scotty, I understand what you're saying. I'd have Robertson on my team. I just think
he's on my roster.
But the other aspect of this is, and the world with the World Juniors going on as we speak, let's remember how dominant the Americans have become at the under 20 level. And when you start mentioning people like Caulfield and you start mentioning people like Gauthier, they have in their DNA the ability to beat anyone on the international ice hockey platform. And they have attitude. And I'm saying that in a positive way. Yeah. This is a group of people now that know how to win. They know what it takes. And I know it's under 20, but I'll tell you what, that's the foundation for so much of what we're going to see, I think, in Milan. The other guy that Daren mentioned, I wonder, they put Tage Thompson on hold for Four Nations. And you talked about Daren being a different guy, but Bill Guerin's also a loyal guy.
Yeah.
And then Tage Thompson was fantastic at the World Championships.
Yes.
Fantastic. So where do you put him, and do you reward him for his loyalty and his ability? And I think Tage Thompson becomes, thank goodness they can add an extra forward. I think Tage Thompson becomes
I'm at my limit though already. Like I don't have room unless you take do you take a JT Miller out? Do you take like the center? I would go Trocheck, Larkin.
Thompson can play
Matthews.
anywhere. Thompson doesn't have to be a center. Thompson might be better on the wing anyway. So
okay. So does that mean Miller's out?
Yeah,
But that goes to the sandpaper.
That would be a
Burnside
difficult discussion to have with Mike Sullivan to say, by the way, your captain's on good, and you're going to have to go home after the Olympics and motivate this bastard.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Daren may not have been in the building, but John probably was. I know I was after the 02 Olympics, and
I was at the party in Salt Lake City after the gold medal game, Scotty. Curtis Joseph would not go in the room. He would not celebrate with the team.
Yeah,
he sat in the lobby of the restaurant.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Curtis Joseph started the tournament for Canada in Salt Lake City as the number one, had a tough early game, and then Marty Bedard took over.
Well, and the head coach was Pat Quinn, and of course the two were in Toronto. And the moment I always think of is when they honored the gold medalist at center ice.
The most acrimonious handshake in the history of mankind.
Back in Canada, at Air Canada Center then.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's, I mean, it's a real thing, but it's also not. It is a real thing, right? I mean, it is a real thing. But I'm sure what Mike Sullivan and Bill Guerin and the rest of the management and coaching staff are saying, if we don't think JT Miller makes us a better team, then we don't bring him.
Right.
And I think everyone who signs up for that job signs up for the hard decisions. And that's going to be hard because, listen, the Rangers are a mess, right? I mean, it's an ugly year. And JT Miller hasn't played very well. Or I should put it this way, he has not played as consistently as you would want your captain to play. And there have been moments of, geez, like what's going on there? And I'm not sure you can have, I don't know, you got to make the right choice on a call on a guy like that. I think he's on my team, and again, because of that sandpaper and grit, and in that moment, hard to imagine he won't be there. But it's a great, because there are worthy players. And John, your Tage Thompson thing is so valuable because there is loyalty, and you want people who are committed. And even though it didn't work out for them, he shows up at the World Championships. Did he not win gold for the first time at the World since
92 years? First time in 92 years. This could be the American trifecta. World Championships in May, World Juniors in January, Olympic gold in February.
Yeah,
I mean, this could be we've talked about 80 being what it was. We talked about over the years. We talked about 96 being what it was with the World Cup. Yep. This could be the golden age of American hockey right now.
It is. But you know what? To me, this is why this tournament is so, and not to become ultra North American focused about it, but it absolutely could be. And listen, this is a great opportunity. Connor McDavid, 2 straight Stanley Cup finals. He doesn't have a cup. Mitch Marner, all the forgotten years in Toronto, all the young stars on Team Canada who can only, you go back to 2014 for the last event like this. So this is the proving ground for them. And the pressure on them to keep going what Canada established in Sochi, where they were so dominant, what happened in 2010 in Vancouver, and 02 in Salt Lake City. And your point about could this be the golden age of American hockey? If you don't win a gold medal, then I'm sorry. That then you can't. This isn't even. Then it doesn't count, right? You're
No,
not
right, right.
Yeah.
No, but they're on the verge. This
Yeah.
could be it. This could be
Yeah,
it. This
totally
it'll be a
agree.
hell of a celebration.
Totally
and
agree.
the debate around Team USA really does stop at forward because they're going to run back the goaltending, add Quinn Hughes on the blue line.
Oh, no,
Story
I want to talk about goaltending. I want to talk about goaltending for a second.
Yeah.
for Team USA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your starter?
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
It's
I
a
think
good
Connor,
problem.
Connor Hellebuck is the starter, and then you go from there.
Tell you what. Jake Ottinger's been really good.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I've seen Ottinger and Ottinger versus Hellebuck right now. I don't know. I might pick the guy in Dallas.
I think it's. Would you assume? Like, do you assume that you're going to go 2 games, one goalie, one game, another goalie through the 3 round robin?
Yeah.
So, but I think the question. Yeah, I think that's a great question. Who starts?
You're prepared to pivot if something happens, like it did in 2002,
I see
like
what
it
you did
did
there.
for Team Canada in 2010.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I see what you did there. I'll pivot. You're going to have a Friends reference somewhere. That's good. I like that. I understand that, but there's. I don't think that it's as simple as saying it's. I mean, actually, believe it or not, I think, and we'll talk about Canada after the break, but I think it's simpler to talk who starts for Canada than it is for who starts for the United States.
Yeah, it doesn't. You know what? I don't even know if it matters as much because the group play is. I was just looking at it here, and I'll tell you. So, the U.S. has, with all due respect, the U.S. has the easiest path in their group. They have Germany, Latvia, and Denmark. So I'm not sure. Canada's got Czechia, Switzerland, and France. Two good teams to play. I don't think it matters who starts for the Americans. And I'd like to say a word on behalf of Seth Jones, talking about the American blue line.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've known Seth a long time, and I remember doing a story leading up to 2010 Olympics. 2014 Olympics. And he'd just come to Nashville, and we were doing stories about players on the bubble, and was out to his house. And man, what he did in Florida and how he conducted himself and how important he was to that cup run. I know he's on my team anyway.
Bill Zito's in that management group. He's going to be lobbying. That. So
the starting 6 in the Four Nations final were Slavin, Faber, Werenski, Sanderson, Hannafin, and Fox. Quinn Hughes was injured. Charlie McAvoy was injured.
Yeah. So 2 of those guys come out.
So who are you taking out of those 8?
Well, with all due respect, I think you take Hannafin out.
Hannafin?
Yeah.
Adam Fox hasn't had a great season either.
Yeah. Hannafin's playing the best hockey of his year right now.
Yeah. But you've got, so you're going to have 8D on the roster.
Yeah.
So I think you take Adam Fox. But I do think there are 2 guys that I think are worthy of this discussion, and that's John Carlson in Washington, the right-handed shot, and Seth Jones, certainly with the Panthers. Again, it's complicated if Jakob Chychrun can't come back. I'm hopeful he can. Listen, he's such an amazing person, has no real history with USA Hockey, right? Like, he's a complete outlier, and oh my God, he's so good. I hope he plays because he deserves it. But if he doesn't, then you are into a different. Shane Gospeher in Carolina has been absolutely outstanding. Can do all kinds of things. He's another guy.
But he's not at the level of any of those guys you mentioned. Gospeher is not at that level, particularly defensively.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
Oh.
He and John Walker last year. I totally. I'm not. Listen, I'm not on the Ghost payroll, but he's been pretty damn good for a really good Carolina team. But anyway, here's hoping you don't have to replace Jakob Chychrun because he deserves it. And then it does, I think, one of those veteran guys, John Carlson, Seth Jones, I don't think you can go wrong with either of their pedigree and their current level of play.
So do you have a surprise player, Scott? Is there somebody that we haven't mentioned that's on your team that you think, wow, or we pretty well run the gamut?
With Team USA, I really don't. And again, I don't, it goes back to all of these, it's not about, people get bent out of shape. You say, well, I don't think he should be on the team. And you think, well, you don't like him, or he's not a good person, or not a good player. That's not the issue. Like when Lane Hutson wasn't really considered, right, for Team USA, even though he won Rookie of the Year, I totally get that. Well, I mean, what are you going to do with him? What's his role there? Mm-hmm. And I guess, because I think it comes up with both Canada and the U.S., and let me ask you guys what you think. Because we're now in a period which may well be, to steal your phrase, John, the golden era of international hockey vis-a-vis the NHL. You've got a World Cup of hockey in 2 years. 4 years from now, we'll be back at the Olympics, and so on and so on. Is there value in having a player there's no room for Lane Hutson, but is there value in having a player like Lane Hutson? And we're going to talk about a couple of players with Team Canada who are in the same kind of boat. Mm-hmm. Is there value in having them experience what's going to happen in Milan, because they may become a foundational player in 2 years, and because these events are going to continue to grow in importance and they're going to continue to happen? Is there value in taking one of those young rising American stars just so they get a chance and they understand it? Because, what's the turnover going to be like in 2 years?
So it's a good question, but it also goes back to your original thesis that if they're going to play sandpaper hockey, if they're going to be, beach in the alley hockey, then Lane Hutson doesn't fit in. Period.
Yeah, well, and
I'm not taking somebody just. I'm not taking somebody just for the experience.
No. And we should learn that after all the injuries that occurred at Four Nations. We should learn that, because the intensity of that Four Nations, I think, will, project to the Olympics. And you're going to need every healthy body that you can put your hands on, because you're not doing an airdrop to Milan on day 3. You're not. And so that's the real challenge. You're going to have to, on your 25-man roster, every guy is going to have to be able to play at any time.
Well, and isn't that why you have Jake Sanderson? Like, I've got him locked in, don't I?
Yeah.
Just looking at my roster here.
I do too.
Yeah. But don't you have him locked into your roster because, when Charlie McAvoy went down, I thought Jake Sanderson was excellent. So, okay. In Canadian side, same things happen, right? Shea Theodore goes out early. Thomas Harley gets parachuted in. Also elevated Drew Doughty's role. Responded, I thought, very, very well. But you're absolutely right. Guys, you're going to need everybody. It looks like a big roster. You're like, guys aren't going to do anything for 2 weeks. No, everyone's going to play.
Canada's 25-man roster debated in depth as we continue on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon, joined by Scott Burnside. Follow him on X, Overtime Scott B. How active are you over there?
I have a newsletter, Burnside on Hockey.
Yeah, the news. I'm a subscriber to the newsletter. It's a good newsletter.
You're very kind to say so.
I like it. I like it. It's fun.
How often do you put it out?
It makes me think.
Well, bless you for being among the
thousands and thousands, right?
Yeah, that select, maybe deeply disturbed few who have subscribed. So anyway, I appreciate it.
You could do a few volumes on Canada's goaltending going into the Olympic Games. Have you settled on 3 guys, 2 of which will likely be different than the Four Nations face-off?
Yes, I have. And I to me, there's no, I don't know how you don't have Logan Thompson as your guy. And frankly,
I'm with you.
Is he your starter? You can do, I don't care who starts, but I had Logan Thompson. Now I haven't updated this since Darcy Kemper got hurt. I had Kemper as my third. I don't know that it really matters, although given the very strong ebbs and flows of Jordan Binnington's game, that third goalie may become critical to Team Canada.
So you have Binnington in,
Binnington,
Thompson, and Kemper.
Yeah, but I'd take Wedgwood ahead then if Kemper can't go.
It's funny. I would take Blackwood ahead.
Sorry,
partner.
Blackwood.
Oh, because Wedgwood's also been in there.
Yeah,
so.
no, I had Wedgwood as my fourth, sort of.
Okay.
But you're right. You could take one of the Wood brothers from Colorado.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, it's I don't know whether I don't know how peaked the conversation will be heading into the tournament about Jordan Binnington, because he wasn't all that good last year heading into Four Nations, and of course stole the show. Right? They don't win that game against Team USA without Jordan Binnington. They might not beat the Swedes without Jordan Binnington. So, but it becomes a bit of an interesting issue. If he may not even be the starting goalie of the Blues by the time that tournament runs around, right? Like I don't know, but to me he's a lock. You have to have him on the team, right?
I think he's on the team, but I think Logan Thompson is your number one.
Yeah.
And that would have taken a lot of discussion to convince certain people that Logan Thompson needs to be considered.
Yes, and that's a real thing, right? I'm not going to put you on the spot, Daren, but his acrimonious departure from Vegas is a real thing, and those feelings and that, you talk about building chemistry and identity and all those things. I think that's part of the discussion, don't you think, John?
Yeah, no, I totally do. I think that was the discussion a year ago too, for Four Nations, and there were people that either were in the organization or were close to the organization that said, you know what, for a short tournament for this, and we already think Binnington's our guy. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth the headache, and so that's exactly what happened. And it was easy at Four Nations because Binnington played every important minute of the tournament anyway.
But you also had options, more options, deeper options.
I'm not sure how much deeper we had.
Well,
I'm not sure. I mean, seriously.
Aiden Hill had won a Stanley Cup and was playing as good a hockey as we've seen, and Sam Montembeault was great last year. Those were much better options than they're dealing with right now.
Perhaps, yeah.
I mean, Logan Thompson has played his way into consideration, but the other part of it is others have opened the door significantly for him, either through not being available or their play.
Yeah. And I think that you're right. The pool of goaltenders that you think could be a difference maker for Canada in Milan is a lot shallower than we had a year ago. You're right. I can't believe I said that. So.
Yeah. And it will be fascinating to see how the coaching staff uses the goaltenders and what, let's say Binnington's your guy, and you figure he's earned the start in game one of that pool because of his work at Four Nations. If he's not very good and you're already planning to go to Logan Thompson in the second game, do you go back to Binnington at all? And that becomes, before you get into the nitty gritty of it, I think it's going to be fascinating. It is. The reality is that just, Binnington hasn't been good enough for St. Louis, and you look, they crawled back into it a little bit, but I don't know. It's a terrific talking point, and as it was at Four Nations when there were a lot of skeptics, it's going to be a great narrative as this tournament proceeds.
Up front, significant conversation about Macklin, Celebrini, and Connor Bedard. Both, one or none, are on the team. I have Celebrini on my team over Bedard. Where are you, Scott?
I'm the same. And I felt that way even when Bedard was scorching hot and before he got injured. And now the injury, I think, clouds that a little bit. Celebrini, was he fourth or fifth in scoring? And again, we talked about this with the World Championships and Tage Thompson. Macklin, Celebrini joining Team Canada, playing with Sidney Crosby, having that experience, even though the team didn't do very well. I think that's a really important thing. And I think you find a way for him to be on that team. I don't know that you can take both, because then it goes back to, well, all right, who are you going to take out? And I think, with all due respect to Konechny in Philadelphia, I don't know that he's part. I would take him out of that Four Nations group. But what other forward are you taking out? And we'll go back to Seth Jarvis. I'm a huge fan. 19 goals. And that kid does absolutely everything. I thought he was absolutely fine at Four Nations, in and out of the lineup, but I thought he was in for the championship game. To me, he's a lock to make that team if he's healthy. Mm-hmm. So what other, are you taking Sam Bennett out? I think that's what, then you go back to your question, what's the identity of this team going to be? And how are you going to navigate this tournament and bring home gold? What's the character of it?
My only change is Konechny out and Celebrini in. But then I look down and go, does Mark Scheifele not deserve to be on Team Canada? Wyatt Johnston is always in the mix.
Wyatt Johnston's my guy. Yeah. Wyatt Johnston is. I mean, I've always thought of, because we don't. It's funny, we don't think Wyatt Johnston as being a young guy. I don't know why, but we don't. Mm-hmm. When we talk about Celebrini, probably because they were teenagers, but Wyatt Johnston, when he started in the NHL, was prolific as a teenager too. So I have Celebrini and Johnston on my team.
Yeah. Tom Wilson is another name that I keep going back to.
Well, particularly if the discussions amongst the Canadians is similar to what the discussions that Scott says that Bill Guerin's had with his group is, do you need guys that can be that level of physical in this tournament? And if that's the case, then I'm taking Tom Wilson as well.
Tom Wilson's on my team. And I think the other thing you have to factor into this is, now that I remember Doug Armstrong's name, we know he's the GM, but what kind of role does John Cooper as head coach play in the formation of this team? And I will answer my own question. I think it is enormous. And Daren, you mentioned that in terms of the changes, they were very minor. So that means Anthony Cirelli's back in, Brandon Hagel's back in.
Yeah. Who are you taking out? If Konechny?
Well, I'm not. I have them both.
You get to add what you get to add one and take one out.
Right. So you get two. Yeah.
So you get two forwards. You can change two forwards.
I have Tom Wilson. in. I had Nick Suzuki as my extra, the 14th guy.
Yeah. Yep. The Nick Suzuki thing's a fascinating one, because there is a bit of an attitude against Nick Suzuki in the group, because he has turned playing for Canada internationally down. And remember, this whole process of hiring Doug Armstrong or appointing Doug Armstrong the manager, and watching through World Championships and watching through Four Nations and it's all about, who's prepared to commit long term. Yeah. And Nick Suzuki turned them down. And I think there are people within that group that have not forgotten that. And that's that could come back to haunt Suzuki. And in essence, if he's the 14th guy or whatever, but there are people out there that do not like Nick Suzuki in this mix.
So Burnside, just curious, you're 12 from the Four Nations that were in the final. They're all going back?
No, you're taking Travis Konechny out.
Yeah.
So Konechny was the extra forward in that game, right?
Yes, he was, because Seth Jarvis played. So yes, I have all the starters coming back, and then my two extra forwards would be Tom Wilson. I had Nick Suzuki on there, although
Celebrini.
I will take Celebrini then ahead of Suzuki based on John's comments, which I think are entirely. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I have Celebrini on my roster already. So you know who I took out? I did take out Sam Bennett.
Okay,
you did. Wow,
that's significant.
Now, and I will tell you, this is a list I did, I don't know, a month or so ago. Panthers weren't very good. Sam Bennett hadn't had a great start. Listen, we're cutting hairs here.
Yes.
And so I had Celebrini in, and I took Bennett out. But again, my argument or rationale was this. I think Tom Wilson's a lock to make this team. And I think the way he's played, he is not slagging Alex Ovechkin. I think he's become a de facto captain in Washington. He does everything. He kills penalties. He's still, I know guys hate him, but he's driving the bus on a Washington team that has somehow managed to retool itself without bottoming out. Right, Ovi chasing the records, and that team, it's a good team. It's not a great team, but Tom Wilson's driving the bus there, and I think he's on that Canadian team. I think Celebrini's on it, and I took Bennett out. You put Bennett back in and take Suzuki out. Then,
see the other thing that people forget is that when they named the original 6 players to the group, Braden Point's part of that group. And you have to wonder the year that Braden Point has had, was that the right decision way back when?
I don't worry about him at all.
No, I don't either, really. And all those Tampa guys are, again, could you find someone who does what Anthony Cirelli does or Brandon Hagel? Maybe you could, but well, again, these guys have done it, right? They've won cups. They yes. I don't know. I got no problem with those guys and they're Coops guys. I'm okay.
Doesn't it remind you of the old Canada Cup days of the Islanders and the Oilers all come together with the Lightning and the Panthers having to play in the same team?
Yeah, I think it's and why wouldn't you want guys who've been to the very top, who understand that, and when that moment comes, late in maybe you're in a quarterfinal game and you're, a team you should beat, and maybe it's Switzerland or Germany or whatever, and they're dogging you and you're down a goal or tied or whatever it is. Don't you want to look down the bench and see 15 or 16 guys that have been in that exact same situation and have persevered? And I think that's, it's going to be unfair for a lot of younger players probably, and maybe Celebrini will be one of them. Maybe Bedard will be another, go down the list, Caulfield and all those players who are great young players. But at some point, the Doug Armstrong and Bill Guerin are going to look at their list and they're going to go, I want that. I want this guy because I can see his cup rings. And
two more names for you: Bo Horvat and Morgan Geekie.
Yes, I'm aware. Both of them are great, right? Like both of them are having really impressive seasons. Morgan Geekie's so how fascinating, right? All he does is scores every single night. I just don't. So where do you have him?
The question becomes in place of whom? That really becomes the question. Who are you giving up?
Yeah, you're taking Tom Wilson out for Morgan Geekie. See, to me, Daren, the Morgan Geekie is interesting if you're a team that is like, geez, where are we going to find our offense, right? Where are we going to get our goals from? And I look at that Canadian roster, I don't think that's going to be an issue. And
by the way, we always say that in international hockey, and then we can't score.
Well, having covered the Olympics in 2006 in Italy, and what was exactly wrong with Team Canada, you go back and look at that roster from 2006, you're like, how could you not score any goals in that tournament, right? But that's what happened.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even 2014 in Sochi, which was the most efficient Olympic hockey team I've ever seen.
Totally.
But it was Mike Babcock hockey. It wasn't Olympic hockey. It was Mike Babcock hockey.
It wasn't 8-2.
No. It could have been.
They only need to score 2 goals.
They bought into the system. And that's why they won. And by the way, everything that we're talking about is having, the 50 guys that we're basically talking about Canada, the United States, 50 guys buying into the system. That's what it's going to take, and that's been, I think, the message from both Armstrong's group and Guerin's group is that you're used to playing 21 minutes. You might play 9.
Yeah. Well,
what do you do on the blue line though? Taves, Makar, Sanheim, Parayko, Harley, and Doughty were your 6 in the Four Nations final. Shea Theodore was hurt. Morrissey was the extra.
Yeah.
Well, Morrissey was the extra because he was sick.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
sick.
But I'm just saying that for the final, those were your 8.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some change there.
You do.
Yeah. I do. Here's my issue now with, listen, the Thomas Harley story was great, right? He's about to go on a tropical vacation, if I recall. And then, well, by the way, do you want to come to play in the Four Nations? And he was very good and he was fine. He's been hurt. I know certainly the fans of Dallas feel his play has dropped off. So I don't know. Do you pencil him in because he did what he did? And maybe it goes back to to rewarding him for being a loyal guy and coming in a difficult situation. I think Morrissey's in that. I would move him up. And I have Doughty in my group. I have Colton Parayko come back. Obviously, Shea Theodore. Here's the guy. There are 2 guys. Jakob Chychrun in Washington. Is he? I don't know. Where is he in your Norris discussion right now? Is he top 5?
No, not for
top
me.
5's a win because you're playing against yourself because the top 3 are pretty much determined.
Okay.
Yeah,
but he's had
top 5's a win
that season. Yeah, he's an elite player.
I agree with you.
And he can play the left and the right side. So okay, what do you do there? But the guy, what are you going to do with Matthew Schaefer? And goes back to our discussion about young players and all those kinds of things.
It's too soon, Scott, for me.
Boy. What Mike Sullivan the other day who called him a one-man breakout show?
Yeah.
And I go back to this. And I've had this conversation with Drew Doughty. Now, Drew Doughty played a year before he was part of that Olympic team in Vancouver in 2010. I don't think that it's all that dissimilar, though. And Steve Eisman.
It's a great comparison. That is a great comparison.
Names Drew Doughty to the team, plays early, and Drew's so great to talk to, but he tells a story about Steve Yzerman coming to him at some point very early in that term. He's like, dude, I named you this team. He says, stop passing the puck every 2, you get the puck and you pass it away, 2 seconds later. You're here because of what you do. Do that. And by the end of that tournament, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, where was he, among your best defenders in that tournament? That's Chris Pronger, Scott Niedermayer, and that whole group. He was outstanding. And I don't think in Schaefer there is any wobble. He comes in as your 7-8 guy. I think he's earned that. And, what also Aaron Ekblad, who else you want to put in there?
Evan Bouchard is a hot button.
Oh my God! Come on.
I know he's not on my team. I know. I'm just saying that he's on a lot of lists.
It sounds like we're being mean here, but I don't. How could you do that?
You can't.
I know the Oilers have played better.
Yeah,
and I know his numbers in the playoffs the last few years are astronomical. I don't see it and that's the thing with Schaefer. Listen, the kid's made some mistakes. Where is that Islander team without Matthew Schaefer? They're nowhere. And he is. I think you could put him on that team, and you wouldn't at the end of it go, "You sure that kid's a rookie?" Anyway,
I fully am transparent here. In 2 years' time, I'm going to look and go, "How is Schaefer not on the Olympic team? Like he's that good. Then he's just not on my team right now."
Then he should be on. If that's the case, Daren, he should be on.
Because in 2 years' time, he'll be like established, dominant at another level.
Yeah, but,
right now,
if I'm taking my 8th defenseman, I'm looking towards the future, and there's a chance that he won't play as much. There's a chance he won't play many games, but he will be amongst that group of players.
Use your own words against you. The Four Nations face-off, did it not teach us anything?
But I still don't have a problem with playing Schaefer in a game. That's right. I don't. I really don't. I'm not. I understand you think I'm using my words against me. I'm not. But I think he can fulfill both things. He can be the future and be the present as well.
Well, I'm curious because I want to ask you both. Then what you started with this, Daren, but I took Travis Sanheim out of that group not for any. He wasn't. I didn't think he was bad, but so I took him out of the group from Four Nations. I think Thomas Harley is an interesting question. Does he deserve a spot because of his work at Four Nations? I'm not sure his current level of play puts him in that top 8. But then then who else then? Chychrun, Schaefer, Brandon Montour, it's an interesting, like it's not as cut and dried, I don't think, as with the US, where you're like, oh my gosh, they have here's 8 amazing guys. I think there's a little bit of gray area, don't you think, in, let's call it, 6, 7, 8 for Canada? Or do you think I'm off base?
I'm open to your thought process of a couple of adjustments there.
Kindest thing anyone said to me.
That's how by the way, that's how the meetings went with the managers and their staffs too.
Well, I can tell you this. It was an extended meeting, the most recent one with Team Canada, with a ton of conversation. It went over the allotted Zoom time. Let's phrase it that way, with the debate. So what we're going through right now is only amplified over there.
Oh, sure. And they've had 20 of those conversations.
So the idea that there could be 2 changes on that blue line, that to me is significant when you're making 2 changes out of your 8.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Well, but like the Hughes situation on the American side, to have Shea Theodore healthy,
yes,
playing makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
it makes a huge difference to Canada, because I mean, it was to have him break his wrist early in the tournament, that would we wondered if that was even possible, that we could that Canada could win the tournament without him.
John, are you taking Sanheim out?
I am. Yeah, I would take Sanheim out.
Yeah,
but
so who goes in?
Well, see, I'm a little more bullish on Harley than you are as being a regular. I do for yes, I understand he hasn't had a good. There's a lot of Canadians we're talking about. Well, he hasn't had a good playoff or a good season, but he's going to play great at the Olympics. So I like Harley. I like Schaefer, and I would not be opposed to Jakob Chychrun either. I wouldn't. So I think there are options there, and I do like the fact that Chychrun can play both sides.
Fun stuff. Do we have an idea on the Canadian identity? If you say grit and determination, little sandpaper for Team USA, how do you put the headline over top of Team Canada?
Well, Connor and Sid are the identity of the team.
Yeah,
Connor and Sid.
Just 2 names.
Yep. For me,
I'd throw McKinnon in there too. But I think maybe it's just the Canadian swagger, right? Like, and John alluded to it. The potential for what lies ahead for Team USA at this tournament and what's at stake is enormous.
Yes,
right. A chance to write history, a golden story for the first time since 1980. But listen, it's a Canadian team that always finds a way. They, yes, 06 was a bit of an outlier, but you go back to 02, this is Canada's tournament, and they can win it any way you want. They locked it down in Sochi in 14, and frankly, it was kind of boring to watch. They played a number of wonderful games in Vancouver, lost to the Americans in round robin, and had it was a little bit of hair on fire stuff going on. But at the end of the day, it was Canada's game and Canada's gold. And I just think there's that swagger, and there will always be that, especially when you've got, Crosby looking for a 3rd gold medal. I mean, what a statement on his career that this is, his possibility. And Drew Doughty, same thing. And, the swagger that this team's coming into this tournament with, okay, we're on the mountain. Who's got the stones to knock us off? And I think that's that's where it's at.
By the way, Mark, speaking of stones, Mark Stone on your team?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, but I'm telling you, there's going to be.
No, if you've watched any of Stone or talked to anybody, his points per game this year are through the roof, like top 4 in the National Hockey League. I watch him every night, so I'm going to end that conversation right there. And I'm disappointed you even brought it up, John.
We have to serve the people.
I just served the people.
Notice.
Sandpaper versus swagger. And it's Team USA with the sandpaper. Interesting matchup. Sounds like 100% hockey with John and I. I know which one I am.
Wait, which one?
I'm the swagger.
I'm sandpaper?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
You
good.
got it written there.
I like sandpaper.
I've seen John work in the corner. I think that's all right. I think that fits.
Yeah. If you've been on the receiving end of one of John's conversations, there's sandpaper there. Burnsy, thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. A ton of fun.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
I think we solved a few things there.
I don't think we solved one darn thing.
Really?
Other than the fact that you think that I'm sandpaper and you're swagger.
Well, the Canadian blue line, let's look at that. Like Jakob Chychrun is a name that I was on the fence about listening to Scott talk about him. I'm buying in.
The fascination about Chychrun is that, yes, I know he was born in Canada, but he grew up in Florida.
Yeah.
Until his name got mentioned, a couple of months ago for the first time, I always thought he was American. I don't mind saying it. Oh yeah. Because I mean the stories of Jeff, his father, who was a really good hockey player in his own right, flying Jacob to Canada to play. And I said, well, he must be American then. But no, and I would not object to Jakob Chychrun the way he's played this season in Washington. It's been a fantastic story. This tournament, this week will be such a great discussion over the 3 or 4 days, particularly during holiday time with the World Juniors on. There's lots of discussion about hockey, period, and then we just cross our fingers and wonder who's going to be healthy enough to go. And
I'm going to throw one more name at you.
That's the other aspect, right?
Yeah, you're right.
That's the other aspect.
Zach Hyman, we didn't bring up.
I know, and I always wonder if Doug and John Cooper have had a discussion with Connor McDavid about Zach, and do you put in the Sidney Crosby, Chris Kunitz logic that we saw in 2014? Chris Kunitz was a valuable member for Canada, wasn't a prolific scorer, but he worked really well with Sid. And do you want to put some comfort there for Connor McDavid? Zach Hyman would certainly not embarrass himself or the country at the Olympics. He would be fantastic.
Here's my last question to you. Team USA announces its roster. Will it have a different captain than the Four Nations? Both the player will still be there. Austin Matthews wore the C in Boston and Montreal. Could you see Jack Eichel taking over as captain?
No.
Okay.
I can't.
I can.
The only reason I don't think that Austin Matthews did anything to have the C removed.
Okay.
I mean, they were within an eyelash of winning Four Nations. Because
that was a big tournament for Jack on the heels of the Stanley Cup championship.
One of the other reasons, though, is if you look at all the uniforms that they have put out already for the Olympics, and I think
he's got the C.
I think the C is still.
I don't remember seeing that. So
we'll have to find that.
Yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there, just in case it happens. You can say you heard it here first.
Well, you heard a lot of things here first, but nobody gives us credit anyway. So,
sandpaper versus swagger. Who are you taking? I'm going with swagger.
In hockey, I go with swagger. On this podcast, I go with sandpaper.
I'm getting a t-shirt made. #swagger. Follow us and catch the full episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. It's 100%.
And don't forget
hockey.
Amazon Music.
Oh, yeah.
Our friends at Amazon Music.
It's written down. It's part of the list. That'll be something that I'll keep reminding people of, and the list is continuing to grow because there's all kinds of different platforms, but Amazon Music is great. I'm with you. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. We'll have some fun watching this release.
We will. It'll be fun, and maybe our friends Daren and Armstrong will be right.
One of them might be.
Yeah.
Not both. Talk to you soon.
Yep.